Well, aloha, my fellow Kiwanians and guests. It's a tremendous honor to be with you today, especially the visitors, because I see the other group for last year, 2 years I've been a Kiwanian. But to be here at the Covey Art Gallery in downtown Provo. And the reason I mention that is because I know from personal experience, I walked through this entire town for 3 days before this exhibit opened. It's because I used to be a reporter here for the Deseret News, the Tribune, and the Provo Herald. And this was my beat. You know what a beat is. You have to go cover it regularly and write stories. And then from '57, when I got here as a freshman, until I went on my mission and then came back, I covered this for the Deseret News and the Deseret and the Salt Lake Tribune and the Provo Herald, all of them. That's because when you're a student, you're trying to get money wherever you can, and that means on stories you write, so I had to make contacts. And I might have known some of the people you know, the mayors and the county commissioners and people from way back in the 50s and 60s, and then we moved away and came back here. This is entitled, as I'm going to get all little programs for you. I gave them all away downtown when I went down there, and I found this. It was sort of a sad commentary. About 2/3 of the people that I talked to didn't know what a collage was. And I don't know about you. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but this is a different kind of art. Now, you're looking at this, and I know some of you, I can see it in your faces. You're sort of grumpy, you know. Did I get dragged in here to see this kid's arts? It's not mine, by the way. It's not my art. It's my son's, and he was hoping to be here. It took 2 years to get on the venue. This is called refereed art. You know, anybody just can't walk into the Covey Gallery and have their pictures hung. You can't buy your way in. It's got to go before a panel, and it's refereed, and then if they figure it's got some sort of a chance, then they give it. Took him 2 years to get here. And then he moved off to North Carolina to become a musician and a screenwriter and what else the creative people do. He did collages for a while in Salt Lake City in a gallery there called by Robert Duncan. Have you ever heard of him? Good stuff. He does sort of Western stuff, little ducks and geese and better flurry, you know, as when I go out in my surrey with the fringe on top. Good stuff, good stuff. And he had the Golden Goose was in Trolley Square, and he had a number of people working there, marketing, salesmen, and so on and so forth. But he was an interesting man, being an artist. He required everybody that worked for him in the gallery to also do some form of art, because his theory, and I believe it's correct, is if you do art, then you're going to be able to know what it's about, and the great care and diligence and passion that people go through to get some sort of a production. And many of the people did the typical portraits and scenes, and some did sculpture, and some did pottery. You see a little bit of that here. Chris got into collages. He's a creative person, and all creative people are always under a lot of stress. And so what he wanted to do is something in art where we would have a lot of fun. And so what he did is he got hold of very expensive magazines. These images you see are not cheap stuff. These images are from very expensive fashion magazines, art, and you can see that by the great color. The paper itself is very valuable, and that's why the magazines were so expensive. But what he'd get in there with razor blades and scissors, and what he does is he disassembles the pictures, the portraits, and you can see that a lot of these are models. These are faces that you might recognize, except that my son did something that collage people have to do because they would be breaking the law if, for instance, I took Wally's face here, and Wally's faces, and they're very distinctive. It's distinguished. Look at this face, you know. If this was in a collage, everybody would recognize it, wouldn't it? You would. And same with Mario and the others of you, you know. And you got good faces, sad faces, happy faces, grumpy faces, all right? And so what he did is what he does, if it's a girl's face, he sort of makes it into a man-boy. You don't know. A lot of these are androgynous. Now, one of the paintings here, I can't think of which one it is. It's one, her name is Diana, and it looks like a man. Are you with me? So you're not quite sure, is it a girl or a guy? And if it's more like a girl and you might recognize it, what he does is he changes the eyes. And one eye is blue, one eye is green, or half an ear. You see what I'm trying to say? He's massaging the people, and he gets a collage. It's got a basis in there, but it can't be recognizable or he's stealing it. You see what I'm trying to say? Good stuff. So you're going to see in these collages a lot of eyeglasses, you know. I'm going to try and get people who are in eyeglass factories to look at this, because to me this is a way to sell eyeglasses. He's got all of these. And I want you all have assignment. You're not getting out of here today. You don't get your cookies or anything until you write down which one of these collages turns you on or turns you off. And don't be frightened. We won't have your names. There's no checkup, but we're really looking for input. Seriously, my own family is split on this. About half of them like them, and I'm one of them. I'm a cheerleader. The first time I saw these, I just fell in love with them. I know exactly where I was. It's like when I was converted to the LDS church. I was up at the Mexican restaurant on the corner, and he had them in the back of his car. And I got out there, and I laughed my head off for a while. Probably too long. The policeman said, "You're illegally parked," so he got us out. Anyways, we got out. But it's a collage, and I want you to remember that. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. This is an art lesson. This is an art lesson. I was in the Department of Communications and Fine Arts for many years, and so I got to see all kinds of art there. And I became so intrigued with art, good art. It's called, you know, there's different kinds of art. It's, yes, brother.
There's an art program on BYU. And on some stations it's 19, others 21 at 9:30, where this man starts from beginning.
And he paints.
And he shows you which brush to use.
Yeah, I've watched that. I've watched that.
Beautiful art program.
And as you know, at the Eldred Center, we have the same kind of a thing where people are painting and doing busts of the Savior and things like this. It's great. And I know that many of you do this, and I appreciate this. I never was an artist. Mine was with words. I tried to create words and stories and images that way. But the bottom line is images. And this is what we want you to enjoy today. These are, well, let me just give you an example. I'm in a wonderful ward, and I home teach. I go to a lot of homes, and I've noticed that there are, in the 4 homes that I teach, I think each one of them, including my house, has a Arnold Freeberg painting, and you know what it is, don't you? It's George Washington doing what? He's with his horse. Not with his wife, he's with the horse, and he's on his knees praying, and this is great. I love this painting, and it inspires me. It's our nation, it's the president in a time of distress, praying that the army would be able to do well, and they did, and our country was saved. We all believe that, and it's a great painting, and all of Freeberg's stuff is, and I love it. But my question with that is, you see it, and it's gone. You know what I mean? Now with collages, the charm of collages is that there'll always be there something for you because they change. You with me? You guys look at this now. What is this? It's a woman who looks like, no, it's a man, or is it a woman? You see that? Again, that's what I'm trying to say. We're not quite sure, and this doesn't have anything to do with sexuality or anything. It's just the way it's created. It's a thing, it's a person, and you can read it as a man or a woman or a fish. A lot of people see she's got sort of a little fish look to her. A lot of Christopher's stuff here that you'll see has got the fish in there. Now, if you're Freudian or you're in psychiatric or something, they're going to see something in that fish, you know, something that, you know, well, your mother was scared by a sardine or something, you know what I mean? And so this is what you're doing with it. Chris says, that, because I'm trying to tell him that, you know, Chris, you got a lot of fish, you got little dogs in there, and you want to go through here and look at this stuff and see what it is. And it's the same with Mr. I want to give this man credit. This is not just Chris's collage, it's Jack Morford's sculpture. Are you watching all these? This is called Adventures in Whimsy, the edge of whimsy. The art people that put this together are beautiful, smart people. I'm going to give their names. Excuse me, we interrupt now for a small commercial. And here's the commercial, folks. This art gallery show is brought to you by Paul E. Durden, the general manager. And I know Paul. We worked together at BYU for about, he was there for 23. He outranks me. I only was there for 19 years, but he's the general manager. Now, your husband there was there. LeVar Bateman was there as the chairman of the department I was in for many years. And we have his lovely wife here today. We're honored to have you here. Thanks so much for coming. LeVar hired me. And I was up at the Batemans for dinner or for lunch one day, and their son drove me to Salt Lake City because in those days you had to be interviewed by a general authority. So he took time from his busy schedule to drive me up there. So it's neat to have you here, Sister Bateman, who was also on a mission in Hawaii, and she did quilts. Wasn't that what you were doing for a while? So she's an artist in her own like and love, and so on and so forth. So we're glad to have you here. Did you ever do any collages?
No, I do all my art with cakes,
With cake, eh?
decorating cakes,
All right.
making wall hangings.
Oh, wonderful. Well, that's it. And Chris, there's no psychological stuff in it. I'm always trying to read. I says, it's going to sell better, Chris, if you come up with certain symbols and tell people if this is so on and so forth. He said, Dad, he said, all I did it was to have a lot of fun. You know, that broke my heart. I wanted deep psychological stuff in there. Then, you know, you can look, that's what Picasso did, and that's what, you know, have you seen modern art, folks? Just, they get gorillas and monkeys to splash paint on stuff, and then in it is symbols of suppressed, you know, and a soldier. Can you imagine what they'd come up with you? Your diapers were too tight, and so on and so forth, you know. Chris says, no way, no way. He says he did collages because there was so much stress in doing screenwriting and music that he just wanted to have a lot of fun. And this is why the people here, Durden, Dana Friel, who is the marketing coordinator, Dana's father was Peter Wiley, who was an artist at BYU. And we asked her to look at many of these collages and pick out some of the best. And she's got a couple there that are really ghastly. Christopher is trying, this is one where Christopher was really into it. He knew some women who were anorexic. And so he had a couple in there, which, well, they're not here on the wall, so don't, but I think that many of Christopher's collages that are really powerful and have a bigger message here than these are stacked up outside, so on and so forth. These that are on the walls here were demonstrated in an exhibit in Arizona. That's where they just sort of discovered him. And the two artists there that had his work in the galleries, the ones that are framed, thought it would go over big, and they took him to New York to a trade show, but it didn't fly. Even in New York, which is, you know, filled with off-the-wall people, this didn't quite catch on. So Chris just gave up. He hasn't done it for years, but I encouraged him to get involved with the Covey. They accepted it. And the reason he isn't here today is because he got colitis. You know what that is? Real bad, real serious. He's in the hospital and was planning to be back, but he never made it. And so this is why you've got an old 73-year-old codger talking about collages, you know. But it's more than just a cheerleading thing for his kids. It's to talk about what I believe. And can I read for a few minutes? because Mr. Dugan is, yes, sir.
I'm wondering,
Uh-huh.
does he use a computer to cut and paste?
Oh, no.
More for
He used razor blades and scissors and glue. And this is why he quit. You have to use a special kind of glue. And this is why these things, I'm going to hand around a bunch of these today. Be very careful with them because they're not framed. Because these things are very sensitive to touch and everything, and especially to light. We've got sort of a subdued light here. But these things go kaput. But anyways, his health went kaput from sniffing the glue. This is the same glue that the drug addicts use. You know, and you know they get a high and so on and so forth. Well, he wasn't trying to get a high. He was trying to get the collage on there. but it got to his health. So he did about 200 of these, and you wouldn't believe the collection we have in our basement. We're going to try to get a slideshow. And Mr. Dugan, by the way, that's Richard Dugan over there, a great photography man who has covered a lot of our Kiwanis meetings for. And we're really grateful for you, Richard, for coming today. Look at him, he's falling asleep. He hates collages. No, he really doesn't, but he's a fine man. But anyways, the purpose of this exhibit by Mr. Morford and Pratt, and also this is a 3-in-1 exhibit. If you go out into the halls, there's a man by the name of Nye, Richard Nye, who also used to be one of our students at BYU, who's got a fantastic photography exhibit out there. So if you can't stand collages, and I know that there may be some like that, and you're just a little less interested in sculptures like Mr. Morford has, which are super, I think this one here won first prize they had the July the 4th exhibit last month. They just took them down, but a number of his were prize winners. So this man, and look at his fish, and see how look at his. Make sure you see Mr. Morford's work, because it's really professional, and people write a lot about that. A lot of people, see what I'm trying to say? Just in the 2 exhibits that are here, that's called On the Edge of Whimsy. Are you familiar with Brother Christensen, who used to be an art professor? He's the granddaddy of all fantasy stuff, and that's great. And he was on our faculty too. So I don't want to brag too much, but I do. I'm a journalist. We all always brag about our great people. And Christensen's work and Morford's work, and I think Chris's too, are into this whimsy world where they're trying to say serious things, but bring a smile. You've got it, sister. You win the smile contest for today, okay? I think you're having a good time. But that's because of that guy who's got his arm around you, isn't it? Yes.
How long ago did
Huh?
do these?
These will be here for the months of August and September. And that's the great thing about the Covey Art Gallery. It's only open for 4 days a week. They close on Fridays, but you can come in from 10 until 5 and feast on this. Bring your kids. We had a lot of kids here on Friday night, and some of them were having a ball. Some of them just came for the cookies. That's okay. We don't care. We want kids to get the feeling of art. And the last lady that was here, and the ones that are here now, they work with children. Do you know that art can be used for autism and for handicapped kids and all things like that? And this gets me to the main point of what I think Chris's art is. I'm dropping all my credit cards. I'm suffering from early Alzheimer's, and I really have a tough time with names. But anyways, I got most of them out. Are you all familiar with what's called the Rorschach test? Are you? A lot of people know. You can call one up on the internet, and I did just for fun. And they got a lot of loaded questions there. In the one that I took on internet, there's always one there is, what sexual implications are in there? And so consequently, anybody that's analyzed, at least by the guys with this thing, they're going to say, well, it reminds me of the diapers were too tight, or something bizarre that has to do with sex, you know what I mean? But that's not what these do, but there are Rorschach messages in these. And you can think about that. And I've got a lot of slides that Chris doesn't have hanging on the wall that sort of fall into that category.
How many years ago did he do these?
I think it says 01. So what is that? That's about 10 years ago. And what he did is, I say a couple of hundred. And the other people that were in the galleries with them are U of U art students and stuff like this. And they were utterly amazed because he was doing them like in about an hour or two. Just put them together. And you and I can't do that. And people sort of look down their noses at artists that don't go to art school, don't go to Paris or Holland with the Dutchmans and so on and so forth, but just do stuff. But that's the way Chris is, and it's the same with his music. He's hot, and when he's hot, he is very, very hot, or else he's dead cold. And that's the way it is with creative energy, and all of you know that. And it's the same in my work, because I was at a school where you publish or you perish. And I came close to perishing a number of times, but you know, made it through, jumped through all the hoops, and made it through. And I'm not criticizing it. That's a kick in the pants, so you're just not going to live on your laurels or be there because you're LDS or something. You're going to produce, and you're going to produce better than the big guys. And all of the brothers and sisters who are here, many of us, them were scholars, they know that's true. I thought it was fun to be a professor at BYU. When I joined the faculty in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, they told me, you're going to have to publish, you know. And I was, you mean you pay me to get published? Oh yeah, you know, that's the name of the game. And I said, what a job. And I have been blessed to work at a school like this where they encourage you to do that. But anyways, that's beside the point. Let's get back to collage. I'm going to give you the reading so that you'll know why you came, because some of you are wondering, aren't you? Okay, the purpose of this collage exhibit on the Edge of Whimsy by Pratt and Morford is to provide Utah County residents with a sampling of one of the most overlooked and yet significant forms, that's editorial writing, Alf, of visual arts in the first decade of this new century. Now, we've had collage since about 1903 when a guy by the name of Picasso in a form of art called Cubism started, but this is sort of a modification. Although generally unseen because of a tendency to brand oil paintings, illustrations, photography, and other traditional art as the standard, these collages provide the opportunity to transcend the traditional boundaries, to touch, to teach, to transport, and to transform individuals and separate groups, such as children, men, women, the aged. That's for us, gang. See if you can see something that'll help you and relate to the aged in your group. And even cultural groups or tribes, such as journalists. Chris says that I'm in a tribe. He says journalism is a tribe. He says the Kiwanis Club is a tribe. How does it feel like being in a tribe, Wally? And being the big chief. I like being an Indian, you know, so on and so forth. But we got to have chiefs. But anyways, that's how we are. And anyways, and also with inspiration and humor. Chris's stuff here is a lot of in-jokes. You know what in-jokes are. You understand it and somebody else understands it, but nobody understands it. And you're going to see that. Well, what the heck does that mean? And that's the way he is. But on the comments there, we talked to a lot of people who go through here, and this is the feedback we're after. They got the jokes. And when Chris sees this, he's going to say, see, Dad? Because I tried to change the titles in half his stuff. And for me and for you, he's left 7 untitled. Are you with me? Untitled, untitled. And so guess who gets the chance to title them? You folks do. Doesn't that sound fun? You can see one, and if there's no title on it, you can name the title and put it in, and what we'll do is we'll check them over. And I'm going to do this because he didn't do it, and I'll put a title on it, and I'll send you a free hamburger or something, okay? You'd love that, wouldn't you? Because then you and... This fellow's been to Holland, where all the great masters of Dutch art were, and he's been through the galleries. I tried to drop some names to him. He wasn't at all impressed. He'd been in the gallery anyways. But anyways, art is fun, and you can name them. And I've done this at the Family History Center. I'm big into family history. And I used to drag in my collages, and I'd say, look at this collage, and tell me what symbols and what thinking do you see coming through that has to do with the eternities? And it is utterly amazing. I've got copies of some of these, but it was inspirational because they were bound. You know how people are in family history centers. I mean, they're one vision, plowing ahead, so on and so forth. And then to see them get a collage and then come up with some spiritual meanings is pretty neat. And that's interesting. So take that, Mr. Freud, on your diaper theories, that people can also see spiritual meaning in even those. And Mr. Christensen's and Mr. Morford's sculpture, the same thing. What has this fish got to do with the gospel? Well, you can see that if you sit there and think about it. You got to think about this. And this is where you reach down into that deep well of your spiritual background, and some of it will bubble up. Yes, Alexander?
This one reminds me of the sweeper, which they used to call me.
Are you getting this on tape? This is good. We want to get this.
Yeah. they used to call me the sweeper when I used to come on the ship, because I posted a sign at the gangway. Anybody who comes aboard drunk, or anybody who fails to report a drunk, go to your room, pack your clothes, or you're not going to be here. And when I come aboard the ship, people, here comes the sweeper.
And which one is it? This one?
No.
Which?
The one with the blue there.
This one here?
Yeah.
Okay, this is called, he called it the stone cutters. Okay, but anyways, see, Alex got his own name. He got a little bit out of it, and isn't that fine? He can do that. Is it all right? Oh, yes. I don't think Chris would mind that. Thank you, Alex, for that. I appreciate that. Anyways, that's what we're trying to do. And let me conclude with this. The exhibit is designed not just for the highbrow artist, and the middle brow, and the low brow, or the no brow. Are you familiar with those terms? Highbrow is the real, the guys in New York and places like that. And that's good. You go to the BYU Art Gallery. We've got the highbrow in Block. We believe that he's almost the definitive person in defining the Savior's ministry, along with that Frenchman. Remember, we've had both those exhibits. But how the Savior looks, nobody really knows, do they? We'll never know until we actually see him someday. But anyways, artists are still trying their hardest to give us that look. Artists are trying to portray the emotions, the feelings, the music, the beauty of life, and some of them come so close. Probably the closest into strict realism is what? Photography, like Nye has. And what's his name? Another man in our college who's, I actually bought one of his paintings of the temple in Hawaii with an unbelievable, what do you call it in the morning? Sunrise. Orange! Have you seen that one? Some beautiful stuff. Those guys get it realistically. And painters with paints through Impressionism and all the different styles have all kinds of ways that they try to do it. And this is how Christopher has tried to express the frustrations of a young man trying to put together the life, but most of all to give them a little chuckle out of life, which is what we need a lot more of. And I'm grateful that he provided this. And I think we're running out of time. I could talk all day on this. We usually have 50 minutes when we're professors, but you've got better things to do. And the first thing you have to do is write down as you go through and look at these this morning, which one, all you have to do with this is which one did you like, which, you'd like to take and show in your home. That's an ultimate thing. And which one disgusts you and doesn't make sense, okay? Can you do that? Well, folks, it's been, again, a pleasure and an honor to be with you today, and I hope that this has helped you to get a little closer to the art scene. I hope you all will never say, as many people did, that you don't know where the Covey Art Gallery is, because this is a great resource. We're really proud to have it, and I'm proud to have you here with your friends to enjoy this.